In this video, we will set up BGP routing on the FortiGate connected to our lab internet. Now, most environments will likely use a static default route to their ISP for connecting to the internet. However, for larger networks, they may pair with one or more ISPs, including how devices on the internet can reach their corporate network. And this is done by implementing BGP in what we will do in this video. This right here is a dedicated diagram focused on the BGP configuration that we will do, and it is based off of the main network diagram. So simply put, our ISP router will exist in one administrative group called an ASN, which is identified with a unique number. So our ISP and its networks will exist in ASN 101. Our networks will exist in ASN 603. From the ISP, it will advertise a set of networks, but what is most important is that the ISP will advertise a default BGP route to our environment. From our FortiGate enabled for BGP, we will be advertising our entire 172.17 network that can be seen from the lab internet cloud. So all of this information includes the IP details that will be used. Right now, our ISP router is already configured for BGP and will provide our customer something like this. And these here are the details that we need to have in order to configure BGP routing with our ISP peer. So we will need the details in terms of what IP address we're going to peer with, the ASN, and what routes will be advertised down to us as the client. And from our perspective, this is the information that the ISP will need. That this is the IP that they will need to peer with, and that this is our ASN and what routes we are expected to advertise up to the ISP itself. So first things first, we will remove the default static route that we added earlier in this video series. And here it is. We're going to go ahead and select this, and let's go ahead and delete it. Because once again, we want a default route to be advertised by BGP from our ISP. Next, let's go to dynamic and then to BGP. So on this page, starting at the top for the local AS, we need to specify or enter the unique BGP ASN that we are allowed to use. So the ASN can be obtained through ARIN or through your ISP using a private ASN. So in our case, based on our BGP design, our ASN will be 603. Let's enter that here. Okay, and for the router ID right below it, we will enter the IP from our LAN-facing interface to use as the BGP identifier. And once we're done, let's go ahead and apply our changes so far. Next, we will add a new external BGP peer or neighbor with our ISP router. So this would be one of the pieces of information they would give to us, which is this information right here. Let me bring this up here. So remember that they will give us something like this. So we need a peer with this particular IP address that is on our ISP side. So in order to do that, we will go ahead and we will enter the IP of the ISP router right here that exists in ASN 101. And let's go ahead and let's add that neighbor. When we are pairing with a BGP router that exists in a different ASN, that will be an external BGP neighbor or a eBGP neighbor. If it is to a BGP router in the same ASN, then that will be considered as an internal BGP or iBGP neighbor. Next, we need to specify what networks within our entire local network we want to advertise across our lab internet cloud. Now, keep in mind that this needs to be some public network, but for us, that will be the entire 172.17.0.0 network, which consists of our user network, our server network, our guest network, and so on. Let's say add. Now, one of the basic rules to understand about BGP is that any network that is advertised must exist in the routing table. Well, we don't have a specific route for the 172.17.0.0.16 network. We do have individual routes learned from OSPF for the user and the server network. So to add this summarized route, let's go back to our static routes page and let's do an add. And for the destination, we will enter that same network. Okay, and for the device, this will be none or null, which is a black hole that would not be routed anywhere. And then let's say OK to add. So now that route will exist in the routing table and will then be used to be advertised through BGP to our ISP and of course across our lab internet cloud. Next, any routes that are learned from BGP on our firewall, we want them to be redistributed into our OSPF domain, which is already set up internally between the firewall and our core. So let's go to OSPF under Dynamic. And under Advanced Options, we will enable BGP under Redistribute, which is right here. And let's go ahead and uncheck Static Routes. And let's apply our changes. Let's now check out our global routing table. This is here under Monitor and Routing Monitor. And there we see some BGP routes that are learned from the ISP router that we are appearing with. And one of them is a default BGP route that has been advertised down to us for internet routing. So once again, the one that we care about is this one right up here in the top. So this is the default route that has been advertised, and the next hop for that is our ISP router. And of course, the type is BGP. And of course, we have other individual BGP routes that has been advertised. Let's go to our core switch that we're connected to, and let's view the routing table, specifically for OSPF routes. Okay, and there you can see our default OSPF route, which is right here, which is based on the external BGP route that was advertised into our OSPF domain. Finally, we can look at this from the perspective of our ISP. And here we can run various commands to show the working behavior of our BGP configuration. So first, we can view the active BGP peer to our FortiGate firewall. Okay, and it'll be reflected right here for 106.3 with the correct ASN number, and this has been established for about 14 minutes. We can also view our BGP routing table. Let's type in that command on our ISP router. Okay, and there that will show that we have learned about the 172.17.00/16 network, which is reflected right here from the FortiGate firewall in ASN 603. Also, on our ISP router, we can see what routes are being advertised to our FortiGate firewall. And this is a good command that I usually do for environments to confirm if routes are being advertised correctly or even being received correctly. Okay, so from here, we can see that many different routes which exist in the routing table on our FortiGate, and one of them is the default BGP route that we configured to advertise to our peers. And again, this is the one that is the most important. And of course, we can also see specifically what routes our FortiGate is advertising to us. Okay, and there you will see the summarized route that was added. So these are great commands on a Cisco device for confirming if BGP operations is working correctly. And that will conclude this video for how to set up BGP and to confirm BGP functionality on the FortiGate firewall.